Welcome, everybody. So we make it a point to very rarely talk about the centre's finances. We've done that. We usually do it once a year. Well, we've always done it once a year in the autumn, and it's just about still autumn, so tonight's the night. But when I say we're going to talk about the centre's finances, actually, we're going to talk about something more important than that, because the finances are tied up with some really important principles behind the way that the centre and this community and this centre is run, which are important spiritual principles actually in their own right. So if you're fairly new to the centre, I really hope you've noticed that there's something a bit special about this place and this community. There's a sense of friendliness, shared community, part of being a sense of being part of a common project that people often comment on, people from other centres often comment on. And that spirit of community did not come about by accident. It came about because the conditions were put in place which create a spiritual community according to the Dharma as taught by the Buddha. So in the Pali Canon, the sort of earliest recorded teachings of the Buddha gives a list of 4 conditions which are needed to create a spiritual community. Another Buddhist list, you say. Well, you don't have to learn it all because I'm just going to talk about the first one, but it's sometimes called the 4 means of unification. And the first of these means of unification is dana, generosity. So following the teaching of the Buddha, we have tried to create a community based on generosity, an economy of generosity, what we call a dana economy. And this dana economy, I think, is probably the most important condition behind the sense of community that we have in Sheffield. It's really important because it makes us a community based on Buddhist principles rather than on market economics. It makes us a community rather than service providers and paying customers. And what the dana economy means in practice is that all Buddhist events at this centre, including even residential retreats where we have to hire a venue and sometimes a bus, they're all provided completely free of charge with absolutely no strings attached. And you might think, well, that's just the way it is, but actually most centres are not like that. Most centres are forced to charge for events. So we have this dana economy, this very unusual and precious dana economy. And this is made possible by 3 further conditions. So the first of these is the generosity of the people who teach at the centre and run events at the centre and keep the place running. So people either do that as volunteers for nothing, or they do it for ridiculously low levels of support. The average support for a full-time worker at the centre is £10,000 a year. That's what people like Bodhinaga, Aryadasa, the average is £10,000 a year. I think you'll agree they could earn a bit more. People work at the centre as part of their practice of generosity. The practice of generosity is regarded as really important in Buddhism. So it's, it's the Bodhisattva idea. We try to be contributing to the world. And that's how some people choose to do that. And it makes a big difference to a lot of people. So that's the first one, the people who work at the centre. The second condition that makes the dana economy possible is the many other people who give time, energy, skills, expertise, etc., as volunteers, working on maintenance teams, cleaning teams, in the garden, on the council, and so on. Doing things that otherwise we might have to pay for, except we would never have the money to pay for, so they just wouldn't get done. And then the third condition that makes it possible to offer all Buddhist events free of charge is the generosity of the many people who make regular donations to the centre by a standing order. That includes many of us here, some of us here. Thank you. Thank you. I mean, without you, none of that, the rest could happen. The rest just simply couldn't happen. It costs money to run something like this. So if you believe in what's going on here and feel part of this community, there are many, many ways you can contribute, many ways you can contribute. But one really important way to do that is to help support the centre financially. So if you don't already support the centre in that way, and if you have enough income, and if you want to, because dana is freely given, I would invite you to think seriously about making a regular donation to the centre. There is absolutely no obligation about this. Everyone is welcome to take part and benefit as fully as they like, with absolutely no obligation. So please don't feel under any pressure about that. But that is one important way, really important way, you can make a contribution to what's going on here. One way you can join in with this sort of shared mutual practice of generosity. One way you can symbolize, if you like, being part of this Sangha and make that more of a reality would be to make such a donation. So, as I said, there's absolutely no obligation. It's entirely up to you. Many people, there are many ways to give, but that is one really important way that people can help if you want to, if you're in a position to do so. So when we make that invitation once a year, people often ask, how much are you talking about? There is absolutely no right answer to that. At the moment, standing orders range from £2 a month to £150 a month. So it could be so little you would be very hard pressed to notice it, or it could be quite a lot of money. It's entirely, the average is about 30. So if you're thinking about it, you could ask yourself how much you value this centre and the Sangha and the Dharma compared to, say, a night out every month, or a gym membership, or a phone subscription. You could ask that. But any amount would be helpful. And as I say, there is absolutely no obligation to give anything whatsoever. Events are free at this centre. So some of us here already support the centre in that way. And I'll repeat what I said before. Thank you. You're making a really important contribution to this community. If you're in a position to do so, you might want to think about increasing your donation a bit to make up for really rapidly rising costs. So most Buddhist centres, most Triratna Buddhist centres recognize, in my experience, recognize the dana economy, like the one we have in Sheffield, is really the way things should be run. But very few have managed to achieve it. Most run by charging for classes and events. It was a real struggle to get it established here in Sheffield. It took some leaps of faith. It's an achievement. It's an achievement to have created it. And it's always a bit precarious. So we shouldn't take it for granted. So if you support the ideals that the dana economy embodies, please do think seriously about how you can contribute to making it work if you have any spare resources whatsoever. So if you think you might want to make a regular donation to the centre by setting up a standing order or to increase an old one, we've got some various things here. We've got some pledge forms, and we've got some gift aid, we've got some pledge forms and various other forms which will be available to you. Or you can set up a standing order online. But please do, if you do take one out, if you do set up a standing order, please do tell the centre about it, because, well, that helps us to know how we're getting on. And also, we can check that the donations are actually being made by the bank, because they don't always. So, yeah, thank you for listening, and do think about it. And I think Bodhinaga will remind you of